myself. I've been in this space for quite some time now. In fact, if I just give you an anecdote, when I joined my first Agile team, there was a Microsoft product in the market. It was known as Microsoft XP. So if, you can, those who haven't heard, you can just kind of look it up. So capital XP. So they abbreviated experience to XP. So Windows experience to XP. That was the product. Around the same time, there was an agile methodology or framework, if you want to call it, called extreme programming. And extreme programming was also abbreviated as XP. So there used to be good lot of confusion among people at that time. So that is the time around which I got introduced to Agile. So that's pretty much it. And I've worked with teams based in US and based in Europe, as well as India and other locations, let's say Southeast Asia and APAC. So this is generally what I have learned. Teams mostly doing Scrum, some amount of XP, a little amount of Kanban, and with anything in between. So Scrum means like doing Scrum not the right way, and purists who argue that a stand-up has to be exactly 15 minutes, and purists who want to say have the teams all co-located. So that was the thing, the mindset with which I started. And now I've landed up in a situation where all the team members are distributed. So it's come a long way. So that's the brief introduction I would like to give myself. I don't know if we have time to introduce each of us. The host can tell me. If we need to introduce each of us, then I can take that. So can you help me here?
I think whoever is interested can introduce, but I think without that also we can go ahead.
Okay, so how about this? So I will share a link in the chat. Actually, I've already shared a link in the chat. So if you can go to that link, and there are 3 questions basically in that. What that will do is help me understand who I'm talking to in the audience and what you're looking from the session, so that I can know your domain as well as give some examples suited to that domain if I am familiar with those examples. So can everybody access the meeting chat? Okay, in case you don't have that, I will put it again in the meeting chat, that link. So if you can take a minute or so and give your responses there. Okay, already see there are some responses. I will share this. Okay, so good. So I've already had some insight here. There are approximately half the audience here, which who are using sprint goals every sprint, and about a third who are using it occasionally, and probably some who haven't aware of it but have not used it. So that is with that I will start this discussion. Okay, I'll come back to the results of the survey time. So here, what are the sprint goals? This is what I'm hoping to cover. And I will again go back to the survey and try to take whatever inputs I have from the survey. So why do we need them, and how to write good sprint goals, and what are some of the challenges you might anticipate, or if you want to share that as we go along, that will also be good. So this is pretty much what I was hoping to cover. So I'll take a brief pause there. So anything else, anybody? Okay. So what do you want? Looking at the responses here. So what do you want to get out of the survey? Trying to see the responses I have. So about a little more than half of the audience are aware of the sprint goals and are using it every sprint. So I would like inputs from those in that group. Um, as we go along, I will just ask you for your experience and examples, right? So what do you want to get out of the understand how to define sprint goals? So knowledge enhancement, then in general understand how to sprint and how I use it in the industry, how to figure out the best sprint goal. Okay, so which all things must be included, which all things can be skipped for considering the sprint goals. Okay, then what goes wrong in setting up a sprint goal? Definitely. I was hoping to cover these aspects as well. And then we have people from telecom industry, tech, IT, software, communications domain, oil industry, and building technology. So pretty good. So I have to admit, some of these domains I have no experience, especially the oil, building technology, and yeah, EdTech a little bit, but these two domains completely, I am, I haven't worked in those domains. Although I have a few, I know a few people who work in those domains, but yeah, that's about it. Okay, so I will, okay, this one, if you're seeing the slide, I will go back to the slide now. Okay, so first of all, so what is a sprint goal? Nothing mysterious about it. It is what it says. So what is the goal that a Scrum team or a group of Scrum teams are planning to, focus on delivering for the sprint? That is pretty much the sprint goal. So what it does and what it helps achieve is the key part. So what are the some of the goals we can define for the sprint, and how can a Scrum team focus on achieving those goals? So this is the key aspect, is it's a collaborative work coming up with the sprint goals, because the Scrum team are experts in solving that problem. But defining a problem and prioritizing a problem, what problem needs to be solved in that sprint, that's the call of the business. So whoever is our product owner, we would look to the product owner to give us this kind of an input. What is it that we are trying to solve, and why we have to solve it? That is the key piece. And that will help the team mobilize themselves, organize themselves in a way that they can address the priorities for the sprint. You might ask, there are user stories in a sprint. Aren't those enough? That's a very key point. But the key difference here is, if we treat a sprint just like a container for, for dumping user stories, which will get executed and delivered by this by the Scrum team, the danger there is that you might have a lot of people working on various things, but they may not be collaboratively working together towards achieving a particular goal. Team member A might take a particular story, start working on that story, and executing, and they don't probably interact with other team members. But whereas when we have a sprint goal defined, that goal will have several tasks. It might be several user stories or tasks, or they might have several activities that need to be completed for that particular goal. That is one. So the key here is a sprint goal is a tool that can be used for collaboration within the team and also communication outside the team. That is the key. The next is focus. It brings focus to the team members. What are the outcomes we are planning to deliver? What will our customers benefit from what we are delivering? Right? So why are we working on this? For example, if there is a customer case and or there is an account which is a hot account, and probably they are on the verge of going to a competitor, that is a rallying point for the team. This feature is the make or break feature for us to retain that customer or sign on new customers. They're waiting to sign up, but this is the key that is kind of holding them back from signing on. So these are the things that will rally the team together so that we work towards delivering the customer value. The other thing is alignment of expectations and objectives for the team. So for example, there is a product owner that interacts or interfaces with the team, but there are other groups within the organization that are working with the product owner, like the sales team, the customer support team, the marketing team. There are so many other, or even in customer success solution enablement team, pre-sales team, all these people are working together with the product owner to build. And what is a good way for the team to communicate with anybody? Just tell that these are our goals that we are working on, and they are in a business language. They are not in a very technical language. They are in a business language that the whole organization is able to understand. The next is the visibility, not only for the stakeholders, but also team members. They get visibility on what goals did we achieve so far, what is remaining, how can we make these goals to be completed, how can we work, what help do we need, what obstacles do we have for achieving these goals. This is a kind of a way we can communicate to all stakeholders and get visibility around this. The next I wanted to here is just elaborating further on the what, just going into why do we need the sprint goals, who needs it, and why we need it. Key here is for the team. So you can look at the sprint goals as a definition of done for a sprint. We have all looked at definition of done for user stories or epics or for a release. So if you look at a definition of done for even, definition of ready for a sprint, if you want to call it as well, we can look at a sprint goal, defined sprint goal. We are ready to start the sprint. And we have met these goals. We have achieved the goals for the sprint. So it's for the team. It serves as a valuable tool. Then for the business as well, the stakeholders, they want to know, when is this epic getting done? When are we able to demo this feature to a customer? The business will know that this is the goal for the sprint. They can look at that and they can communicate to the partners or customers that hey, this sprint we have these coming up. Do you want to see this demo? We can set it up for you. That is one part. The next two, it's again, we talked about it a little bit. It's a tool. Again, it is a tool for prioritizing. It's a tool for communicating the priorities across the board. And then a collaboration between the team members as well, and collaboration with the stakeholders as well. So these are some of the reasons we will take. And let me just take a pause here. And let me ask those who are been using the sprint goals regularly. So if you can tell so far what we've been discussing, like, did that kind of, resonate with your experience of why you were using the sprint goals? Anyone, you can identify yourself and you can give your input.
No worries. Normally, like the way we use it, right? So basically, the product owner will comes with the objectives. Okay, these are the objectives that he wants to achieve as a part of that sprint. Then we'll go to the stories, we'll pull the stories, and based on the stories, we define the goal for that particular sprint. And that's where we end our sprint planning.
Yeah, that is also possible. So you are pulling in the stories, and based on those stories, you're formulating your goals.
In line with the objectives that he wants to achieve.
Correct. Yeah. So that is also possible. The caveat there is, you are aware that once you define the goal, it might, you have already pulled in the stories, you're writing the goals later, so there is a slight chance that there might be additional things that might need to be done. Like, for example, if you're saying, let's demo feature A to beta customers, right? So you pulled in the stories, then beta customers also, there is an additional feature that is needed for beta customers. So that probably also get tagged out if there is a slight additional variation there. But you can do it both ways. And I've seen more or less the teams work with the product owner to define these sprint goals in both these ways you suggested. There is, however, a possibility that we are not in an ideal situation. In that case, that might lead to an additional, I wanted to talk it in a later slide, but since I'm bringing it up right now, let me complete it. So a lot of times what happens is the team will not have a full-time product owner. So at that time, the team themselves are trying to come up with the sprint goals, and they want to write in a business language. And I've seen it struggle here a little bit. So the struggle there is they are trying to come up with a business language, but they don't understand that too well because that's not their expertise. That's where we as Scrum Masters and coaches need to pull in the right people to help the team come up with a good sprint goal that meets the stakeholders' expectations and the team's needs.
Yep. Thanks, Shrikant.
Okay. So any other questions? Just trying to check the time here.
Yep. Shrikant, I have a question.
Yeah. Pallavi, yeah, go ahead.
Hi. Thanks. Sometimes what happens is that, there are the the product backlog refinement has been done, and team is well aware what they need to do. The definition of ready is met. Now they have come to sprint planning session. Still, there's no business goal which can be met, like in a business language, but there could be a technical aspect which can be triggered and it can be completed as part of a sprint. So how does a product owner will define a goal, or how does a team will come up with a goal which is purely a technical basis? So it has to be always, I mean, what I'm trying to understand is it has to be aligned to a business goal, which I understand,
Yeah.
but it has to be like, every sprint, can it have a technical goal as well?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say, okay, ideal scenario, I think you already mentioned. Ideal scenario, like we always have, a business, customer that can see working software. That is the ideal scenario.
Yeah.
Yes, that is the ideal scenario. There are times when, let's say, for example, project is starting new,
Mhm.
right? So several instances we would have worked with a project starting new. You won't have even customers for that project, right? So once we to reach that stage where a customer can see a working software, there might be several sprints we have to go without a working software that can be shown to the customer. So here in this case, what the product owner needs to understand, probably he or she will understand that, is that there has to be a threshold of technical capabilities built up. Like, for example, we need to build up dev environments, right? We need to, bring in servers that will take care of our automation. We CI pipeline. We need to build that. These are not the features that customers are seeing or they're asking for, because that's not what they're asking for. But to deliver that to the customers, we need these features. So a good trade-off is that, so in the initial sprints, there can be an agreement between the technical leaders, like the architects or the technical experts, that they can agree with the product owners that the technical experts will be defining the goals for the sprint that will help us get to a minimum viable product, right? Till that time, the architect and the product owner will agree on what can be the sprint goals that will help the business meet the minimum viable product to build to that.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So
Thank you.
that is crucial. That again, this also forces collaboration. That hey, we don't have something in customers' hands, but to get to something in customers' hands, we need to have a proper infrastructure, right? That itself is a goal
Mm.
to get to a minimum viable product.
Great. Thank you. That helps.
Okay. So any other question? Okay. If not, I'll move on to the next one. So whoever is writing the sprint goals, you can please, conversant with the sprint goals, writing of the sprint goals, you can pitch in. I'll just go through a few here, and I'll ask people to jump in. And so here, the first one that I'm talking about here is involve as many stakeholders as possible. It doesn't mean like, the whole organization. All it means is like, the key people. Like, for example, if you have a tech lead, involve a tech lead. If you have a product owner or, somebody representing the marketing or customer support, please do involve them. So that they kind of, at the end of the sprint, they don't come and say, this one, there is nothing, no value for me here. So let's kind of get them involved early. So that's one thing. And then I'll tackle this one here. Measurable. Like, how do we measure if we achieve the sprint goal or not? A good way is a demo feature X to a customer, right? demo feature X to the customer so that they can see increase in signups. So probably that is what we are trying to do. Or if you are saying, improve the stability of the system so that we can bring down the crashes that happen if you have X percentage, like the downtime is in the quarter is probably it is say 20 hours. Your goal can say that we want to reduce the downtime by 50%, right? So that is a goal as that. So anyone wants to kind of add in here? If you're already writing sprint goals, something resonates here or something that is not here if you want to bring up. Okay, all right. So value, always we are trying to see what value we are getting. So what value, like for example, there is a customer issue which is causing customer browser using this feature at this particular point at the payment stage, the browser is crashing. How do you want to quantify that? You want to say that, we want to enable complete checkout with 0 dropouts. That is probably that goal you can define. And again, that's what I was telling. This point already I was spoken about. So when the team doesn't have access to a full-time product owner, let's kind of give the team a little help by getting them somebody who can word those sprint goals in a business language. This is kind of I can resonate with it in a few projects. So a lot of times nobody misses much if they don't see a sprint goal. But at the same time, once they have seen the sprint goals, they keep coming back and asking, okay, what are the goals for the sprint? If the sprint has started, you can really tell if my sprint started like last this week Monday. By Tuesday, I will have probably the CTO checking with me, or one of the tech team members checking with me, the product owners checking with me. Hey, the sprint goals, what are is anything that's coming up? I just have to point them to the pages where the teams have drafted those sprint goals. So that is the kind of I would say the power of it. Once they see the sprint goals consistently for a few sprints, the whole team across the organization, they will come asking for sprint goals. So some of these the why questions we need to answer. So why are we doing this sprint? So what value the customers are getting? What value the business is getting? What are the business outcomes that we are getting in the sprints? So cover these points. There can be a few more, but this is a good starting point. Once you write for a feature, you can go as granular as possible so that you can make the goals as small as possible and get them completed as soon as possible in the sprint. The danger, if you have a big goal, is that it might not be done in a sprint, not even 2 sprints or 3 sprints. It might take a quarter or 2 quarters for a very large business goal to be done. So let's kind of make it as granular as possible. So here in the next slide, what we're looking at is
Sorry, Shrikant.
which, yeah.
Sorry. I just have a question on the first slide, previous slide as well. When
Okay.
you say a sprint goal, can you have a big goal, right? Because it's a collaborative decision.
Right.
So it should never be a big goal, isn't it? It is something which team is committing as together along with the PO. that it has this is what we're going to achieve in a sprint. So they have already seen the stories or a little bit of tech that if or tech spike kind of stories they might have pick up, but it will never be a big goal, isn't it?
Right.
There's,
Correct. So I think probably there is one on next two slides. I think there is something on this. But since you brought it up now,
all right.
yeah. So I will address that. So generally, what happens is it's a typical dysfunctions in a team. So when there is no proper rigor around backlog grooming, right? So if the product owner is doing multiple things, not focusing the backlog for this team, what will typically happen is you will get a very coarse, this is like, feature X, let's deliver this feature X kind of a thing. And the team that's working, okay, they'll say, okay, it's feature X, right? Okay, let's start working on it. And I've seen this happen multiple times in different organizations. It's that when there is no rigor, there are no properly managed backlog, no obstacles coming around, the proper backlog grooming. What will happen is the product owner is happy, just defining a feature and coming back, after 2-3 sprints. And the team, they will just define a few things, or whoever is there working, leading the team, they probably are not as much focused on this aspect of it because they're also doing multitasking. So there are a lot of times some things will get unaddressed for several sprints, and these will carry on, and somebody notices down the line and they'll start raising hell. Why isn't this done? This was last quarter. Why isn't this done still? And people have to kind of point out that there were no proper user stories there. And we needed to write good user stories. And I've seen this in multiple organizations, large or small. When there is no rigor around it, when there is no proper obstacle practice, and there is no accountability, things can slip and big goals get defined and they can carry on. And you need to listen to the team, and team needs to be diligent about doing proper retrospective, saying that we need to reject stories. If
Yeah.
it is too large a story, we need to reject stories.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
one way a Scrum Master or a coach can help the teams is to identify when the grooming is not done properly. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
we shouldn't even allow those stories to get in. But let's say you inherited some a team, or you went in and you see some kind of a behavior happening. How do you put a stop to it? The best way is to help teams recognize in retrospectives. You saw the story that was too big and it didn't get done in 2 sprints. What is the best way to deal with it? So you can tell them, you can reject the stories going forward, right? Or if the story is already in flight, let's kind of put a stop to it and get people together, write proper user stories. Let's not let the team suffer with executing something that is not thought through carefully, right?
All right. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Uh, this one, I haven't used it much, but I've found it useful when I've used it. There are various tools, like whatever tools you use, Jira or Jira, definitely it has a place to put sprint goals. So if not, if you have a physical board, back when the days when we were doing, using a physical Scrum board, we can have a sprint goal draft. This is by Roman Bachelor. Nicely calls out what is the product, what is the sprint, what is the goal, and how are we kind of executing it, and what are some of the metrics, right? So this is something. So most of the tools have a way you can define the sprint goals. And probably there are some tools that go even further. They come up with, let's define your sprint goal in this particular tool. I haven't used those tools as well. The important thing here is not the tool. The important thing here is bringing people from different, areas together and write something that is valuable for the business and help the team focus to deliver that value. Okay. All right. So what are some of the challenges? So I think this one we covered this. So a jumbo goal. So I recently joined a startup, and there when I joined, this was like a feature that was being executed for the last, I would say, 1.5 quarters. So roughly about 4 months, you could say. This was like, just a one-line sentence that was, this feature X needs to be delivered. So when you told, it should be a sprint goal, it should be fit into a sprint. So this is what. So it came in. So finally, I was able to put a stop to it. And finally, that feature is out of the door. And there will never be a jumbo goal entering a sprint. So that is something that needs to be kind of tackled, right? So what are other challenges? Lack of clarity. So business stakeholder is not engaged enough. They don't communicate the the objectives. Let's define sprint goals for the team. Lack of engagement. You can't blame anyone because probably everyone is multitasking, but we need to hold each other accountable. And at the end of the sprint, we need to define sprint goals. The outcome of sprint planning, you can say, I didn't word it well. I said the words could have been the outcome of the sprint planning. The outcome of sprint planning, yes, there are several, but a key of that should be a sprint goal. You need to do task breakdown, you need to estimate the hours, and all those things you need to do. But a key thing will be you need to have a sprint goal. Lack of attention. Like, for example, there were several teams that I worked in the past where there was no focus on sprint goals. Nobody asked for it, and nobody missed them as well. That's what. If people start seeing the sprint goals, and they see the value in that, and they'll latch onto it. So just because it is not being done, just don't leave it. Make an attempt to start. It's worth it, right? So teams are disconnected from the goals. So sometimes, like, sprint goals are defined, but teams are not looking at it because, guess what? So many unplanned activities can come, or people are pulled into some of these high visibility work that it can be deployment, it can be production issues, it can be anything. So if team members are disconnected from it, you can have, beautifully written sprint goals, but it can amount to nothing because nobody is connecting to that, or nobody is kind of, looking at it. So as a practice, what I do is either before or after the stand-up, I try to review the sprint goals. And I have them in a format that there is kind of, one screenshot, one page I pull up, and the sprint goals are visible. And I can just mark it done, or whenever it is done, I can mark it done. So that is the kind of focus that needs to be there. I think that's all I had. This is probably some of these I've used in the past that have been really useful. And of course, Roman Bachelor, that as well. And here, you can find me here. And anything that you want me to focus, let me just go back to the form. Are you able to see this screen, the browser tab?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Oh, you can see the browser tab. Okay, perfect. So this is the survey. So here, so what do you want to get out of this session? So understand how to define sprint goals. Did we achieve that?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So knowledge enhancement. So did you gain anything out of the session? If nothing, like the outcome of sprint planning, you can have sprint goals. If nothing, if you just take that away from the session, I'll be really thrilled. Okay, all right. So general understanding of sprint goal, how it is used in the industry. Yeah, so pretty much across any industry, it doesn't matter. A sprint is a sprint, right? So I've seen it used in several domains as well, and I've friends who work in different domains, and talk to them, and they use the sprint goals. It's how it is used. It's basically kind of align everybody, set rally everybody to a common point. Okay, how to figure out the best sprint goal? I would say instead of how to figure out the best sprint goal, if we can say how to prioritize our sprint goals, that would be more ideal. So we can work in the priority order. Like for example, the other day I was talking to one of my team member on this very topic of sprint goals, and what he said was like, we are having, I think I didn't mention this, so I'm guilty of this. So there are too many sprint goals that come in because there are so many stories that are being done. So I'm not pushing back on limiting the sprint goals. The reason I'm not pushing back is because there is team's capacity that can be there. So if the team's capacity, then goals are getting much bigger. But I like his idea saying that, can we define only 2 or 3 goals and let the other things be there? And then we can pick up the other ones, as and when they get done, we can mark it done. But these are the top 3 must meet goals. I want people's kind of, opinion on that. So, okay. If nothing, then let me just kind of say, yeah, so if we can have, the must-have goals kind of for the sprint, that can be like, filling 50% of the sprint goals, and the rest ones, if we can prioritize on the sprint goals as well. So that will be, the good. Yeah.
So I often use ADO board, Azure DevOps board.
Okay.
So when we define a goal, we define the main goal as a heading so that it's visible to in our daily Scrum. And then we have sub goals as well, which are related to main goal, of course, but there are certain like production issues and plan, supporting the others on the next sprint, those kind of works as well. There's a dependency on some data architecture team and all that. So those are mini goals which we put in our sprint goal as well. But yeah, that's a good idea that, you need to have when the sprint is set to be achieving that goal, that sprint goal, you must have some main goals and sub goals as well.
Right. So this is like, take 50% capacity as the must-have goals, and rest of it, like, it's like, good to have. I have to explore that further. There will be pushback, but I'm willing to kind of work it through.
I mean, like I definitely feel there will be pushback because like the sprint goal should be as you only mentioned, right, in the initial screen, that it should be a business language. Right. If you're talking about a technical goal as a sub goal, right? So I mean, definitely there will be a pushback.
Yeah, see, the pushback is good because like we want to see the maximum value delivered in a sprint, right?
To whom?
So let's ensure that. But at the same time, let's also make sure that we have a prioritized list of goals, right? So that we can address them in that order. So,
but that's what my point is. Like, Shrikant, like, whatever stories or the tasks that you are taking, it should not. I mean, like, it will or it might not be contribute to your sprint goal, right? Your sprint goal is your goal for that particular sprint to develop that product. So it should be
Yeah,
a sub part of your vision, product vision, right?
yeah.
For that particular sprint.
See, I agree with that. For the ideal scenario, that's how it works. But generally, in the real world, what happens is many of the team members get pulled into unplanned work, right? So there is this interview happening. There is that, now some production issue needs to be debugged. There is a fire in the data center, right? Something like that. Fire in the data center, it's like, once in, it should not happen regularly, but things like this have happened. Or, server has crashed. All those will happen. So for that, like, if we have a prioritized list of goals, let's kind of, work through the prioritized list. Yeah, so it's good to kind of test it out. So what goes wrong in setting up a sprint goal? We discussed, I think. Can I say we met this goal?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so yeah, it's not only my experience, it's everybody's experience, right? So it is like, see, this is a collective learning we do, and there is no kind of, it's not a one-way thing. So that is why I would say that, I'm also learning, when I'm giving the session, I'm also learning. It's both ways. I'm learning from everyone.
Which you said was about, first of all, apologies. I joined the session late. But
No
what,
worries. No
but
worries. It's
one
a
very
Saturday.
interesting thing which you said was about, people from the team coming and asking every day, what's the sprint goal? Now, my question is they know what the sprint goal is because it's there up on the board and whatever. But more than that is the real they may not always ask openly is, hey, what are we planning for tomorrow? What do we want to do tomorrow? This is not, I'm not talking about the daily Scrum meeting. I'm not talking about the daily stand-up. Yeah, that's already happened. But
Mhm.
what are we planning to do tomorrow to contribute towards the sprint goal? How do you answer that?
Yeah. Like we have, let's say, let me just take one particular feature that somebody is interested in. Like, for example, there is a new design of a web page, and we are trying to release it to the customers. Okay, so in this context, like, so it's like, what are you doing tomorrow? It's like the answer will be clear if somebody is kind of following the team. If they're from the business, then probably they have to make sure that mockups, if they're ready, the team is working on integrating the mockups, right? So they are doing the validation. So these are kind of incremental activities as we go along. So once we have something, and tomorrow is right, this is like, step one, step two, step three. If we kind of define it, and we are kind of taking longer with step one, so that is probably because our integration didn't happen, so we are a little bit delayed on that. So once the integration happens, we will make sure that we use all the icons or whatever in the web page, and we'll give you access to the box to try it out. That's the kind of inputs we can give to, if it's the business folks. If it's the technical folks, right? So if it's an architect, like, hey, have you kind of come up with a schema for the database? What is, give it to me for review. Like, when are you sending it to me for review, kind of thing. So each stakeholder will have a kind of a different expectation, right? So we have to let them know in whatever matters to them, what is the actual thing we are planning to do. It's not something that we need to say struggle to give that information, right? If we are anyway doing it as a team, we can just ensure that the information goes to them in some way. So at some point, if this becomes too much of a distraction for the team, we just need to ensure that the team can focus on doing the actual work. And then we, as somebody who can protect the team from distractions, can help them stay focused and get the maximum value churned out.
Yeah, but what you have just explained is essentially stakeholder management. I'm trying to figure out when a member of my team, is maybe a front-end developer or a back-end developer or an interface developer or da-di-da-di-da, doesn't matter what.
Mhm.
He comes and asks me, what do you want, what is the plan for tomorrow? Because, it's going to contribute to the sprint goal. Yeah. And obviously,
Okay.
what we are planning for tomorrow, we need to think about that today, should we not?
Yes, but if a team member, okay, help me understand a little bit. Sorry, I'm just trying to check the time here, but assuming I have a few more, 2 more minutes. So you are a Scrum Master for the team. Is that
Yeah.
their expectation? Okay. No, I would say the team member should tell you what they are planning to do to achieve that goal. Why are they asking you as a Scrum Master what they need to do to achieve that goal?
No, see, they have in the daily standard, they've already said, this is what I did yesterday, this is what I'm doing today, this is what I'm planning to do tomorrow. But he wants that level of comfort that what I am doing tomorrow is going to contribute to the sprint goal. Because at the end of the day, we've committed that, okay, end of the sprint, we will achieve this, so and so, so and so, so and so. So am I on the right track? So this is the reason he's coming to me.
Okay. Okay. I don't have a good answer for this. Let me honestly tell you that. But the thing is, I would kind of expect the team member to tell you what he's planning to do tomorrow to achieve that goal. Why is he expecting you to tell him? So we want.
No, he's not expecting me to tell him anything. He's already committed in the morning in the daily scrum. This is what I'm planning to do tomorrow. He has come to me that, is this going to, whatever I'm planning, am I on the right track? Is this going to contribute to the sprint goal or is it not? Or do you want me to do something, focus my energy somewhere else?
I would say
Shrikant.
if he's on the, yeah.
Yeah, what I would say is that sprint goal is against the user stories, isn't it? So team is committing to a particular set
Correct.
of user stories which will be delivered as part of that sprint. So in sprint planning, what we do is we create detailed tasks that you have to build a code, you have to do the unit testing of the code, or you have to push the code, you have to do the integration, and then you have to push it to the test. Now, all of that will not happen in a one day. So daily, what they will do is I'll just pick up two tasks today. And once I'm done with this and there are no blockers, no impediments for me, then I'll push those codes tomorrow to the testing, isn't it? So that's how each and every team member, they align to a sprint goal to achieve a goal against this. I need to deliver this story, which I have committed. And to achieve this story, these are the 15 tasks which goes against this sprint goal, which goes against the user story. So that's how you'll come to know that the team member will come to know whether I'm aligned to goal or not.
Yeah, that's a good point, Pallavi.
Yeah,
So
fair enough.
So there are stories that kind of align to the sprint goals, right? So if you are completing those stories at a certain time, whenever you plan to complete, then you are meeting those sprint goals.
Yeah, that's what my understanding.
Yeah, thank you for helping me out. That's you answered it much better than I could. Yeah.
And if I may extend to the Pallavi's discussion, right? So probably I mean, like we always try to focus to have a healthy backlog, right? We always say like healthy backlog should be N+2 ready. So if you have already done all the work from that particular sprint, right? Then first of all, like the development team should go to product owner and not the scrum master for asking this question, whether what should I be doing, which will include the, help towards the, what we call the sprint goal. He will be definitely reaching out to the product owner, and then product owner will tell, okay, these are the tickets which are there in the backlog, which we have already groomed in the refinement session. And this will definitely add value to our sprint goal. If you want to pull it, we can pull those tickets and we can start working on it. If there is nothing to complete within that particular sprint, that will be my complete take.
Yeah, so there is, this is kind of slightly not in the sprint goal context, but see, if the team members are kind of putting an estimated completion date for a story or even a sprint goal, right? If they are completing it by that time, they are answering that question to themselves. Am I meeting that goal or not?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Right. So, many teams, what I've done in the past, and currently with the teams that I work with, I do is they put an estimated completion date for the stories, and if there is a customer commitment, those demos will have dates as well on those. And like they themselves, like in a stand-up, like, I need to prioritize XYZ work because I need to meet this goal, right? They themselves are kind of looking at it and seeing the